Hi, hello, good morning. So for today's video, we've got a paint tryout slash review video. I've got these Kuretake Gansai Tambi watercolour paints from Japan. If you caught my Sakaido art supply haul video earlier this month, you'll have seen these. So these are a Japanese paint brand and they're from Sakaido in Japan, which is a big art supply store in Tokyo. I've watched a few different videos and read a few reviews of these, and the main thing I'm seeing people say is they're not really like Western watercolours. They're a bit different. They're a lot more opaque. They can kind of be used as a gouache, but they're also not really a gouache. So I don't really know what that meant. So I'm excited to try them out and see what they're like. So I'm gonna swatch them all, and then I've got illustration sketch prepared that we're gonna watercolor today. So yeah, let's get to swatching them and we'll see how they act. This set is the Art Nouveau set. So this company, they do lots of different colors palettes, they do different sizes. You can get ones that are that big, that are just that many colors, or twice as big, and they have a couple different ranges of sets. They've got like standard ones, they do themed ones. This is the Art Nouveau themed one, as you can see from the packaging. It's like a little Art Nouveau illustration. And I didn't really put a huge amount of thought into which set I was gonna get. I was just there in the shop and I was like, yeah, I really like that palette. I love these purples. I love these lovely sky blues. And I really like this. I'm a sucker for this type of green, like a really saturated, like almost like sick yellow green. I think these look really cool when used in combination with like pinks and purples. So I was like, yeah, let's just go for it. Let's just do it. Price wise, I don't remember exactly how much this was in yen. I know it wasn't very expensive. You can get them over here in the UK. They're a little bit more expensive. They're about £25 for a set like this on Amazon. But yeah, in Japan in yen, I think I maybe paid about £15 or something like that. It was definitely cheaper. Okay, let's get to swatching. So they come like this. As you saw earlier, there was this bit of packaging on it, and they're also wrapped in a cellophane, but I took that off before the video so I wasn't just making like super loud crackly noises. So I guess you're meant to keep them like this. Got this nice lid that goes on them like that, and there's a plastic covering. Okay, so they're not fixed, they're individual. Yeah, that makes sense actually, because when I was in Sakaido, I saw lots of these little individual palettes for sale. Okay, so that's good to know. It's like modular, I can replace them and stuff. So I've got this watercolor sketchbook that I never use. I want to get into using more. Full disclosure, I don't actually do that many watercolor paintings. I used to do loads. Oh, there's the first page if you want to see. This is the first page of my watercolor sketchbook. And then I proceeded to do nothing else. So this is just empty. But yeah, I want to get into doing more watercolor paintings. I used to do them loads when I was at uni, and I just got out of the habit. So I'm hoping this will prompt me back into doing it again. Okay. There's like a paradox with new art supplies where you get them and you're really excited to use them and you can't wait to use them. But also you kind of know that the second you use them, they're not new art supplies anymore and they're not new and special anymore. So, torture. That's why I haven't really touched them yet. But yeah, no, I wanna give them a go. Okay. So this first one is called Saffron Yellow. I think it looks slightly greenish to me. Yeah, it's super pigmented, wow. It looks more like a green in the pan, but actually swatching it, it's definitely yellow, but it's like a kind of old gold kind of yellow. Like there's a slight murkiness to it. That's very pleasing. This one's got to be a green. Yeah, this one's called green gold. That sounds like a color I would like. Oh yeah, that's gorgeous. This is the kind of green I was talking about, like a murky yellow green. I think you could just use it for so many things and it's so pretty. I find doing sheets like this really helpful just for referring back. The way watercolours look in the pan is always slightly different how they're going to look on the paper, and you never really know what you're working with. First impression, they seem a lot more opaque than the kind of watercolours I'm used to. They're not quite as opaque as gouache, but they're definitely more opaque than watercolours. They seem like a halfway house. That's the impression I'm getting so far. My understanding of the main difference between watercolours and gouache is the opacity. Gouache have got quite a sort of chalky pigment, whereas watercolours are almost completely translucent. These I would not describe as translucent. There's definitely something slightly chalky to them. I think these colours have been chosen with a lot of consideration. They've clearly thought about what is going to work together, what are people going to want to use in the same illustration together. already like these first 4 colours. I feel like this would be so nice just to use these 4 colours in like a limited palette illustration. There's something so nice about like murky gold greens with really pastel pinks. Yeah, that's so pretty. This is my favourite shade so far. What's this one called? Coral pink. This is so pretty. I really like this one. Yeah, the more I'm swatching, the more I'm feeling like this is gouache. This is just slightly translucent gouache. This doesn't seem like watercolour at all. Which is a good thing because honestly I much prefer using gouache. I think gouache is a lot more forgiving in terms of being able to rework what you've done. Once you put your watercolour colours down, there's no reworking them, not really. Whereas gouache, because of the opacity, you can kind of go over things, layer things, reactivate the paint a little bit. Oh, that's beautiful. What's that one called? Vermilion. Yeah, this particular shade really reminds me of Japan. This is the exact shade of the torii gates at the shrines at places like Kamakura. This exact, you know, you've definitely seen them. They're really classic Japanese sort of arch gates. They're this colour. Beautiful. It's amazing to me that these aren't more expensive, to be honest. Like I said, I think I paid about £15. Even in, you know, the West, UK, where they're imported and they are more money, they're still only about £24–25 for a big set like this, which is amazing compared to the prices of sort of gouache and watercolours that we're used to over here from other brands. I love purple. It's my favourite colour. I actually had my hair dyed purple for about 4 years when I was at uni. Yeah, if you have seen much of my illustration work on places like Instagram, I use purple in pretty much every image in one way or another. I think it's just such an interesting, complex colour, and it works with so many other colours, whether like as a highlight or a shadow. But yeah, this particular shade of purple, really, really pretty. A hot tip for painting scenery and landscapes. If you want to paint something in shadow, or you want to paint a shadow of something, take your colour of your thing that you're wanting to do a shadow of, or like a shadowed section of, and just mix that colour with a little bit of purple. Boom, magic. That's your shadow colour if you want to put part of the object in shadow. This particular colour will be really good for that. All right, there we go. This is the colour palette we've got to work with. I think that colour palette alone is super inspiring. I'm really excited to use these. I don't know how well it's coming off on camera, but from what I can see, the colours are really rich, really beautifully pigmented, a super sort of like flat laydown of colour. I'm not seeing much in the way of granulation, which some people like granulation, some people don't. I personally don't. I like a really flat, clean colour, and that's what I'm getting from this, definitely. The ones that are standing out to me as particularly beautiful. I love this purple here. This is a gorgeous purple. This coral pink, this green gold, and this vermilion red is really speaking to me as well. That's them swatch, but we're going to put them through the paces today. We're going to be doing a illustration, which I have prepared earlier. Hang on, I'll get out the sketch. I don't know how well you can see this. I've actually digitally sketched this, really reduced the opacity and printed it onto watercolour paper with a printer, just to transfer the sketch onto the paper. I had an idea for a drawing that was going to be like a traffic jam, like lorries, cars, trucks, and in the middle of the traffic jam, somebody riding a snail to work, but in like a kind of really hurried way. So I've got this little mouse businessman like impatiently checking his watch, riding his snail to work. I just thought that would be funny. So I'm thinking mainly warm colours for the snail itself, just so it stands out, just so it pops. I read somewhere that if you want to make objects look closer to the viewer, do them darker, and if you want in warmer colours, and if you want to make objects look further away, do them lighter, cooler colours. So buildings, sky off in the background, light, cool colours, trees in the foreground, dark colours. Oh, okay, I'm so excited. I haven't used new paints in ages. I spend so much time doing digital illustration. Whenever I have like commissions or client work or anything like that, I always do digital art just because it makes life easier, because I'm sure you can imagine if you do like a watercolor commission for somebody or for like a company, their feedback is going to be like, oh, that's great, but can you just change the background colour? And if it's a watercolour painting, that is, you just sit there like, no, I can't. That's easier said than done. So yeah, I've very much gotten into the habit of doing digital artwork for kind of my like professional type stuff, which means this has fallen by the wayside. Yeah, it feels really nice to not sit in front of a screen. This is just normal cold press watercolour paper, by the way. I think it's from Cass Art. Cass Art, if you don't know, it's a UK art supply shop. It's pretty affordable, it's pretty good quality. They've just opened one up in Edinburgh, which everyone's very excited about, because we went without a big art supply shop for years, which is strange because it's a big city and we have a big art college here. Now we don't have to buy things online, now I've got an awesome art supply shop. So this is my little car in that lovely chalky purple. So for the snail shell, this colour right here, alizarin crimson. But I want to layer on some details over the top, maybe these lighter colours. I don't know, I'm going to do a little test swatch over here before I commit to actually doing that. I'll let that dry and then I'll experiment with putting lighter colours over the top. Do a tree next. So this colour is billiard green. These brushes, by the way, I think it's the Winsor & Newton Cotman, like student grade. Yeah, Winsor & Newton Cotman brushes. This is an 11 round, if anyone's interested. I'm kind of the opinion that your brushes don't really matter that much. In terms of like having a successful watercolour painting, I think your paper is the #1 most important thing. If you're not using proper watercolour paper, or at least mixed media paper, you can have a bad time. No matter how good your paints are, if you try to paint on printer paper, it ain't gonna work. So I think the paper, in terms of materials, is the #1 most important thing, and then second to that, the paints. Obviously nicer quality paints can have a nicer job, and then I think brushes come third. I think brushes are the least important. Maybe people who are much more into watercolors than me will be able to be like, oh no, brushes are so important. But honestly, I had a I don't even know what brand it was. It was a watercolor brush that I took from my GCSE art classroom, took it home to finish some homework, and then I graduated and I never remembered to bring this brush back. But yeah, I had this really ancient, really manky watercolor brush that had no name, it had no paint on the barrel or anything like that. It had lived in a school art classroom for probably like a decade, and that was the only brush I used for years. It got me through my A-levels, it got me through the first year or so of my degree. I just really loved this one brush. And I didn't start, investing in proper brushes until I was much older, and I don't really think it kind of damaged my progress so much. So yeah, basically this is all a long-winded way to say that don't worry if you don't have nice brushes, it's not that important. Like student grade or even like kids watercolor brushes, absolutely fine. If you're going to choose to spend your money on one thing, let it be the paper instead. I love that, that's such a pretty green. Winsor & Newton Cotman brushes are a good choice. They're a real standard, not too expensive, but good quality brush. They do have a professional range, but I think they're more expensive than most people need. These big paint pans as well, like that's about twice the size of a normal paint pan. You really do get a lot for your money. This is my one expensive paintbrush, by the way, adding on from what I said before. So this is a Winsor & Newton professional grade sable hairbrush, and I bought it out of embarrassment. You know how paintbrushes are laid out in art supply shops? They're laid out in sort of like little pots, and they've each got their own kind of like price code to them. That one brush was in, let's say it was in the H section. So you look up on the price code like, oh, H brushes are £10 or whatever. And I was like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll get a professional brush, that's fine. And then when I went to the till, it was £24. And I think it had just been put in the wrong pot or something like that. But yeah, I was like at the till and the lady was like, yeah, it's £24. And I kind of froze up and I was like, okay, and I just bought it out of embarrassment. But yeah, I would normally never spend £24 on a single paintbrush. To be fair, it's a lovely brush and I enjoy using it. It's very nice. It holds on to more paint than synthetic brushes, I think. I'm always happy with it when I use it, but I just don't see a drastic difference between it and my other cheaper brushes, to be perfectly honest. You can totally mix and blend these colours, by the way. I'm just choosing not to because of the kind of art I like to make. I like quite sort of flat graphic colour. But yeah, you can totally do like gradients, washes, mixes. I think I want to use the colours as is in the pans just to sort of see how nicely this particular colour palette works together. Maybe I'll experiment more with mixing them in the future. Oh, you know, I feel like the camera is doing these colours a disservice. They really are so pretty in real life. I'm going for a really children's book style look with this. Like, that's kind of, when I sketched the scene, that's how I imagined it. I was like, yeah, I want this to look like, yeah, a scene out of a children's book. So this shade is Pale Aqua. Out of all of them, this is the most translucent. This is the most watercolour-ish of the ones I've tried so far. And that's probably just because it's quite light. I just turned it upside down so I don't smear all of this with my hand. But yeah, like I said, I'm not seeing any granulation with them. So if you're familiar with, like for example, Daniel Smith watercolours, which are well known for being super granulated, super textured, as in when you do a wash of paint and you let it dry, it separates out into different shades within the swatch. I would say these don't do that. These seem to be the opposite of that for me. Some people love the granulation. It's not like a negative quality. Some people like really look for it and love it, but yeah, not for me. There's our little mouse. He's a businessman. He's very busy. He's rushing to work on his snail. I find picking colour palettes for illustrations really difficult. For me, that is the most difficult part of making an illustration, is choosing the colours, how they're going to relate to each other. I'm actually really appreciating that this is like a pre-curated colour palette. It's not just a set of primary colours for you to mix, because I don't have to think about it. I can just pick up colours and they've already been designed to look pretty and work well. So if you struggle with colour palettes and colour picking, I would suggest getting one of these. Which, yeah, most paint palettes aren't like that. Most paint palettes are just like primary colours and a few others, and the idea is you're supposed to mix them. If you just use them together as is, the way I'm doing now, they look terrible. But these, I'm sure you can mix them, but these are clearly designed to look really nice together as is, which, yeah, as someone who struggles with colour palette picking, I appreciate it very much. I think our swatch here is probably ready for me to try out a bit of colour layering, so let's do that. Let's try putting a bit of pink over the top. Yeah, that seems fine. See, this is why I'm saying it's not watercolour. You can't do that with watercolour. It would just overlay in like a transparent kind of way, but the fact that that's laying over opaquely, to me, this is gouache. I'm really drawn to this gorgeous green gold here. I think I'm going to use this for the body of the snail there. What do you call this bit? It's kind of like a foot. This is one big foot of the snail. That's just such a stunning colour. I love that. I guess the watercoloriness of them just depends on how much you water them down. Of course, with any gouache, if you water it down, it can go translucent. To some extent, anyway. Yeah, this is another colour that's got slightly more translucency. Oh, that is just beautiful. I love that. Yeah, green gold is such a beautiful colour in general, and also talking about this specific paint. See that colour? What is that? Potter's pink? Potter's pink. This goes so nicely with the tealy greens. I love circular windows on buildings. There's something inherently whimsical about it. Are you seeing the vision yet? We can kind of make out the snail now. Oh, just look at that green gold. That's so beautiful. I love that. I'm thinking this roof right here is going to be Venetian red. I think I'm just gonna let that dry and then fix it. Oh well. That's what I get for being impatient and not letting it dry properly. But seriously guys, these paints are amazing. I've tried so many different paint sets in my day and these are super nice quality. Like they're going down so smooth and they're just really easy to use. You're not like scrubbing at the pan to get a decent amount of pigment up. I'm honestly surprised that these are as cheap as they are because they're so nice. Oh no, I've got a bit more leaking going on. I need to stop painting adjacent things. I need to let that dry. I need to go to a different area and come back. That's what we got so far. Right, let's do a nice beige building off in the background while we wait for the stuff around the snail shell to dry, and then I'll do that next. Doing digital art for so long, I've forgotten the hazards of traditional art. Like, there's no smudging unless you do it on purpose in digital art, and there's no like trailing your sleeves in paint. So you can hear some drilling outside, by the way. It's like they know when I'm going to film a video and they're like, it's time. Get the drills out, lads. When I'm introducing a new colour to a painting, I like to make sure I don't only use it in one place. I like to at least bring it in somewhere else in the painting. The fact that I've done the beige there, I've got to do a bit of it over here or somewhere else. Ties it all together. And now the one colour I'm not that happy with is this brown right here. Well, Venetian red, because can you see what it's done as it's dried? It's separated out in a kind of strange way. It went down a very purpley brown and then it separated out into brown and kind of orange. So I don't know if that's supposed to do that or not, but I'm not a huge fan of that. That's the only criticism I've had so far, is this particular brown red is a bit weird. I might layer over that later on. I think it's time to do the snail shell. This bit here is a little bit wet, but I'll just try and avoid it. So I'm gonna try and do a slightly watery wash of this pink here, this alizarin crimson, and I'm gonna try and drop in droplets of this bright red, the vermilion, and I'm gonna try and do like something I don't normally do, which is a really watercolory wash. So that's the idea. That's what we're gonna try and do. Ah, beautiful. I think just pulled it off, lads. Cool, let's let that dry and just see what it looks like with the pink and the red blotched in together. And I might end up doing some more layers over that as well. In the meantime, I'm going to change this paint water because it's getting real icky. Hello, I'm back. I had a side quest to eat some lunch, but I'm done now. And it looks like everything has dried while I got up. As you can see, I also did a couple different things off camera, coloured in some of the buildings a bit more. But look how nicely that's dried on the shell. So I did some blotches of the kind of mauvey colour and some vermilion, and then just dropped in some water and it's dried in this really cool way. I know I was just saying earlier that these paints don't granulate that much, but you can kind of get them to do it if you kind of like drop in droplets of water and let them spread out and let them slowly dry without moving them around. So I'm super happy with how that's come out. That's really cool. And I'm going to add in a bunch more details over the top as well. So I'm thinking this truck, I'm going to do this same green colour. The road, I want to do maybe a cool colour for the road to make the snail stand out even more. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. What colour should the road be, do we think? I'm thinking a cool colour because I want the snail and everything to pop, but we've already used our blue up here, so it'd be weird to have more sky. Let's consult with the colour chart. I wonder if we can make a nice grey. I was just going to stick to the colours as shown here, but I think I'm going to do some mixing and see what we get. Bit of purple, beigey grey. Yeah, I don't mind that for a road colour. I'm deciding whether I should add in the details with coloured pencil over the top, or if I should go in with like a fine brush and try to do the whole thing in paint and try to do like paint outlines. Yeah, because I think it needs lines to define it, definitely. I'm not sure, I'm hoping that'll just come to me. Okay. Oh god, oh, this is stressful. This is absolutely tiny. You see how big like even just my finger is in comparison to this mouse's head? Wish me luck. It's tiny. Give him some little boots. And I want this watch to be like comically large. I really love coloured line art. A few years ago I had a black Pentel brush pen and I used that to line absolutely everything. Everything had black line art, specifically with a Pentel brush pen. But recently I have been seeing the joys of coloured line art tailored to the colours of the piece, and I really think it adds something, like lining a red area with this like purple. I think that looks really cool. I'm wondering if I can give him some lighter patches by lifting up the pigment a little bit. Now this might ruin it, so bear with me. Oh, that works. This is already dried down, so I'm just taking a bit of water and just doing like a tiny little scrub to just lift up the pigment a little bit. I don't know, this is like a legit technique. This is just something I started doing at some point. I think when it comes to using and adding texture into paintings, it is best done sparingly, just where you want the attention of the painting to be. Like I think if I added super granulating textures and like for example doing like little spots like this, I think if I did this all over the painting, like if I did the cars and the trees, everything equally as textured as this, it would look a mess. I think yeah, you've got to be really careful where you choose to sort of direct people's eyes. Alright, cool, here's our spotty snail. I'm gonna keep using that same road colour we mixed, and I'm gonna add a teensy bit more purple to make it shadowy, and I'm gonna paint some shadows under the cars. There we go, now they feel like real 3D shapes. It's kind of difficult walking the fine line between making things realistic or not. I mean, as you can see here, I am trying to add a little bit of realism by adding like shadows in, but at the same time, I really do like the kind of very flat looking storybook, almost kind of folk art looking, like the whole illustration is existing on one flat plane. I do really like that look as well. Yeah, it's just tricky striking the balance. It's just occurred to me that I should probably draw drivers in these cars. Because at the minute they're just trundling along, driverless. I think I will suggest drivers. I think I'll draw silhouettes. Because again, like I said, you don't want to be grabbing people's attention all over the painting. Even when you're doing a deliberately busy looking scene like this, you still want to be in control of where people are looking. And I want people to look busy and rushed, so I'm going to draw the shoulders right up hunched, like they're hunched over the steering wheel. Yeah, this is like an animal city. A little bunny in this one. I want to do the bunny in the convertible because I want to paint the ears flapping in the wind. Like that. And maybe I will put lots and lots of rabbit babies in the back because that's the joke about rabbits, isn't it? So I like about illustration is like finding ways to insert little bits of just amusing myself, basically. I was going to say humour, but like it's barely even humour, it's just me entertaining myself. This pale pink is a nice highlight. Oh, this is when I forget what cars look like. There'd be a door there, wouldn't there? I could look at a reference photo, but I won't, so. I think line art really brings everything together. When you're looking at a painting and you're like, this is so uncohesive and strange and undefined, that's when it's time to start slamming on some line art. People who do lineless illustration, you know those block colours? Superhumans. I rely on line art so much. Could be one across there. Where would the door be? What have I done here? If only I'd looked at one picture of a truck before I painted this. Alas. For the windows on the buildings, I'm going to use this specific brush that I literally only use for this purpose. It's a really small, square-ended, flat brush, and it's perfect for drawing windows on faraway buildings. Lots and lots of little squares like that. That sounds really specific. This is literally the only thing I use this brush for, but you'd be surprised how often it comes up. Oh, wouldn't it be so funny if the snail's eyes were headlamps? Let's make these bright yellow. So this is what I mean. Illustration is just about me amusing myself with little visual jokes. Very easily amused. I want the foreground to be dark, so your eye is kind of drawn in at the middle. So yeah, I'm gonna do a little border actually. I'm gonna paint a nice little border and then I'm gonna let it dry completely, and then I'm gonna layer on a bunch of pencil once it's fully dry. So I will get back to you when I'm doing that. I'm just gonna let it dry for now. Okay, I think it's done. I think I'm finished. I'm trying to move away from an over-reliance on using my usual colour scheme, which is always like purple, pink, blue. So, I mean, I have used those colours, but I'm, you know, stretching out into other areas. But yeah, these paints, I really, really like them. I think they're really good quality. I get the feeling they're gonna last a very, very long time because, I mean, I've used quite a lot of some of the colours and it's just the barest little dip that's been used up. So I think this is gonna last a really long time. They're just super pigmented, super nice to work with. So if you ever see these paints on a good price somewhere, go for it, get them. I don't think you'll regret them. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for joining me. It's been lovely having you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.